and speakers related to the workforce in Alabama. Past webinars are available on the AlabamaWorks website at alabamaworks.com. And now your host, Tim McCartney, Chair of the Alabama Workforce Council.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the November 2021 Alabama Workforce Council webinar. We have a very exciting agenda today that includes a strong focus on our K-12 education in Alabama, which is a major priority for the Alabama Workforce Council. Our state's talent system is built on our state's K-12 educational system, and literacy and numeracy are central to a successful K-12 experience. We may be changed. We're actually experiencing a little difficulty this morning. We're using a new platform, so y'all forgive us for a few glitches here. Our first scheduled guest is Representative Terry Collins from Decatur. Terry's chair of the Alabama House of Representatives Education Policy Committee, and she's a champion and a tireless advocate for improving our K-12 system, particularly in math and reading. There are major decisions regarding the Literacy Act that must be made during this upcoming legislative session, so we look forward to an update on that, on the Alabama Literacy Act from Representative Collins today. Following Representative Collins will be former State Representative Jay Love, who is currently co-chair of the Alabama Business Education Alliance. Jay will be joined by Mrs. Jill Corbin, who is Director of AlabamaWorks. They will discuss the upcoming launch of the Workforce and Education Community Assessment Network, or WECAN, W-E-C-A-N. We love those acronyms here. WECAN is an online comprehensive repository of community resources available to citizens in each of our 7 workforce regions. The Regional Workforce Council will be working over the next few months to populate the WECAN. I want to thank Mr. Love and Dr. Joe Morton of the Business Education Alliance, also PARCA and the Alabama Power Foundation for their partnership in bringing WECAN to fruition over the past year. Mr. Love and Ms. Corbin will be followed by Mr. Ron Lee and Mr. Pat Hardy, who are with Vuvio. Vuvio is a knowledge automation platform designed to improve workforce efficiency. It's particularly effective for training production technician roles in the manufacturing sector. The Vuvio team will be followed by Dr. Alana Israel, CEO and founder of Musology, which is a learning system that uses music to help teach mathematics. And following her, Nick Moore will wrap us up for the day with the monthly workforce update. Now, have we got Representative Collins with us yet?
Chairman McCartney, Representative Collins had a immovable conflict. I'm sorry she's not able to make it this time, but she said she'd be glad to join us next month.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. So we will move then to our Jill and Jay. Are y'all ready?
I'm ready. Jill is.
Okay, well, y'all are up. Thank you for joining us, Jay. Jill.
Oh, you're welcome. And Dr. Joe Morton sends his apologies for not being able to participate this morning. He got pulled away at the last minute over the weekend on an immovable appointment that he had. So anyways, I'm proud to participate in his stead. Look forward to the conversation with Jill. The BEA, Business Education Alliance, is proud to be a partner with the AWC in their efforts to showcase and expand the tremendous efforts that community-based nonprofits and the whole nonprofit stakeholder group are participating in the workforce. And a recurring theme through many of our reports with the BEA has been the importance of those partnerships between local chambers of commerce, local 2-year schools, 4-year universities, local boards of education with their nonprofit partners, and the work that they've been doing to improve Alabama's workforce. And the BEA began its initial work through the Public-Private Partnership Committee of the AWC under the initial leadership of Mila Calhoun and now Tequila Smith. And that work was recognized by Secretary of Commerce Greg Canfield and Deputy Secretary Ed Castile And they saw how valuable nonprofits were in Alabama achieving the goal of 500,000 new highly skilled workers by 2025. So the BEA last year signed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Commerce, giving Commerce the tool that we had developed to enroll all nonprofit workforce developers into our e-directory. You'll now begin to hear about the updates on this effort by Jill Corbin, of being a statewide e-directory enabling both citizens seeking to improve their job skills and employers which are strengthening their labor force. It's truly a very low cost, high return initiative that will set Alabama apart from the rest of the nation in workforce development. And the BEA is proud to be a partner. So I look forward to hearing from Jill the progress that's being made with PARCA. And so I'm turning it over to you, Jill.
Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Love. So, the Weekend Directory, as Jay mentioned, it really is a collaborative partnership that is going to really encompass elements that are not part of the public workforce system. And it's really going to take these entire wraparound services to make sure we reach, Alabama's workers on the entire front. So we've actually divided the Weekend initiative into two phases, right? And the first phase is going to be identifying our assets. And then we're going to prioritize those assets that can help eliminate the barriers to Alabamians that are seeking to enter training and enter the workforce. So it will be populated with these community-based organizations. And then it's, we're not going to stop there. We're going to update it continuously. We're going to audit it annually. And then it can help identify the gaps, right? We can look at if we have a large number of providers that are maybe offering tuition and GED assistance, but we only have 2 providers in the region that are maybe providing opioid counseling and drug abuse counseling. Maybe we can look at the gaps there and figure out what other programs that we can work on to help reach the worker and lower these barriers. So the first thing obviously is assets, right? And what is an asset? Well, it's a community, it's a person, it can be a physical structure such as, a library, a social club, or it can be more intangible such as a community service that has community members. It can be public transportation. It can be a nonprofit agency that helps provide appropriate clothing for an individual to go for an interview. There's a one nonprofit that helps produce and purchase a uniform. If an individual gets a position and has to purchase their own uniform before they can begin work, well, that can often be a barrier because you're looking for a job and then you get the job and maybe you don't have the funds, or maybe they come out of your first paycheck. And so, having knowledge of these wraparound services that can help you, anything to get you to that finish line and to get you into that job. So it can be a lot of different things. And we are going to begin enrolling and registering and finding all these assets, right? Registering them. Then we're going to map them with the locations, the service, and figure out how this is going to be presented to people in the state. So then you start with how is this going to be used? So imagine you go to the Career Center and you find a few positions, you find something you want to apply for, and then you're like, well, how do I get there? Well, that's when the individual that is at the Career Center and assisting someone, they can say, well, let's just go to this little tool. And they go to the tool and they go to the Weekend Directory and they find a number of resources that are not part of the public workforce system. They're not state funded, but they will help this individual. And by entering their address and their needs and what they're truly looking to achieve, then they can find this plethora of resources to provide and to connect them to. So even though it is an acronym and we love acronyms, right? The Weekend initiative really is going to, help everyone. We can help all of Alabamians, and we can eliminate these workforce barriers by providing the public and private community-based partnerships together. So, that's the first phase. And then after that, we're going to be doing a gap analysis and, to see where we're going to need to implement and improve programs. And that will be part of 2023, right? We have to map it, we have to get it in the field, and we have to make it a usable tool. And that is coming up. We are looking at launching the entire We Can directory by spring of next year. So stay tuned for more.
We hope too that as we developed the map of all the different services that are available out there, that an area maybe in North Alabama sees something that is going on in the Mobile area or down in the Wiregrass that they currently don't have, or maybe necessarily even have thought of, that they can see that those services are being offered in the southern part of the state or in some other part of the state, and say, hey, who can we partner with in this area to help provide these services? Because this could really help in the development of a workforce and an available workforce. And so, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel in a sense, but we're trying to bring everything together so we can see all the different services that are being offered all across the state that maybe other groups can piggyback on or copy in their area.
Well, all right. Well, thank you both for your presentation this morning. I'm looking forward to having the weekend available to everybody. I know it's going to be a great help. And again, I appreciate all the work that you and Joe have done at the BEA, Jay. I know y'all put a lot of hard work in it, and Jill, you as well. So thank y'all again for all your hard work. Next up, I'm sort of juggling the schedule this morning because we're still missing one speaker, but we'll have Mr. Ron Lee and Mr. Pat Hardy from Buvio. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us today. You're up, so take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, and we appreciate the invite from Mr. Moore. Pat is in the process of sharing our charts, and we are planning to hold to the 10 minutes, okay?
Well, feel free to take more.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. So my name is Ronald Lee. I'm Vice President of Operations, and Pat Hardy is our Senior Sales Senior Sales Director, actually. And we've been with Buvio for about 4 years totally. And Pat will probably introduce himself. Prior to Buvio, I was a senior leader with DuPont for 36 years before retiring.
Excuse me, Mr.
We're
Lee.
in that neighborhood, South Alabama neighborhood. Next chart, Pat.
Ron, there's some background noise.
Yes,
Okay.
can Mr. Lee, can you turn your camera on, please?
Turn the camera on, off.
Yeah, on.
Okay. Not many people give me that option. All right. What about now?
Perfect, thank you.
Good.
Okay. All right. And so, Pat, next chart. This morning, we're going to talk to you about a product that we provide, and it's a tool that's driven much around the human and the physical asset and that interaction. So kind of dovetailing off of some of the words that Jay and Jill used, our proposition is very unique in the value that it provides, and I'll show you what it is that we sell. Pat will come and show you a short demo of how it looks in the manufacturing site. We are now currently using this in major industries, and some of our brands are the last chart of the presentation. And we have also started to spread into the academic institutions, the community colleges, where we are donating our simulations to help the P-TECHs develop. Just last week, I was at a groundbreaking ceremony for a $1.4 million project where we're going to go in and build the competency of a local area. They're beginning to bring in carbon emission, carbon reduction projects, hydrogen projects, So they've asked us to come in and be that foundation to build the competency so that the workforce is developed in order to be competitive and help the business or the company be competitive. So we're moving quickly into the education, helping new people build a good base before they reach industry. And of course, the industry is using us to upskill current workers. What's so unique? We enable operators or students to learn their job by doing. We actually simulate the actual equipment and they interact with that equipment from a desktop, open and close valves by rotating either clockwise or counterclockwise, spanning control loops and that sort of thing, walking through the plant. We carry them through the plant like a subject matter expert to teach them and show them things. We measure the competency of the organization. We spend a lot of money in corporate America doing machine learning, analyzing equipment. What do we do in terms of understanding how competent the people are who operate that equipment? So we have a unique proposition in that we provide knowledge and competency data for individuals as well as the whole organization. Pat, did we lose the presentation? I'm full screen now.
I think we lost Pat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will continue without delaying so that when he comes back, he can do the demo. So once again, our name is Vuvio, and we sell simulations for the field operator that simulates, that teach them how to operate equipment, how to start up, how to shut down equipment during emergency, during hurricanes or routine operations. Otherwise, they would not be able to practice in the field because they can't disrupt the normal production. So instead of textbook learning, instead of P&IDs and drawing on the board, we give people a chance to learn at their own pace, which is very critical. Also, we provide remote learning opportunities. Some of the colleges, enrollments are down because people are working in jobs that they cannot get to the classes on time. Here with a web browser for home, they can actually go in, use the simulation to participate and to be enrolled in school. So remote learning, which is very critical, obviously with the pandemic, and giving people more opportunities. One of the colleges is using it to train some of our people overseas on certain process controls. So very value added to both the corporations, the industry, and the academic. We sell simulations that help companies build overhaul complex equipment. We are losing so much knowledge, it's transferring out of the gates, it's attriting. This is a way to capture that and keep it for the newcomers and for our new culture to come in and operate. But so much has been lost and has not been properly transferred so that new people can use it to operate. And of course, unloading. We had a large chlorine unloading project for Olin right there in McIntosh. And we're doing a lot of safety training up in Sabic, which is, of course, is in North Alabama, and that's gonna go across their corporation. And so basically we use a cloud platform and it connects into the LMS, either for the corporation or for the school. It provides with real-time data so that you know what it is the student understands, what they don't understand, so then that you can drive some type of intervention. And of course, all of that data is collected automatic, no more, back of the sheet calculations or Excel spreadsheets. So next, we're gonna let Pat give you a short demo of our product, and I'll close out with one chart.
Okay, does everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of videos. So I'm going to try to show you the highlights within 5 to 6 minutes, but keep in mind, I'm just showing you kind of the highlights. What I'm showing you today is a utility complex for a plant, but it could be really any work area. So keep that in mind. It could be an unloading dock or a rack. It could be your work process area. So the first thing we're going to talk about with Vuvio is the replica, because it's the foundation. This is the replica. It's exactly what it says it is. It's a replica of your work area. In this case, it's a process plant. I'm now going to be moving along this white line, which is really a plot path of a procedure. What you're seeing here is what we call enhanced reality. This is our proprietary technology, and it's one of a kind. So we have 3 different patents on it. It creates this fully immersive experience without Google Glasses on AR or using an AR or VR headset. And what's unique about it is you can push through these JPEG images, and that's what we're looking at is JPEG technology, pictures turned into moving fully immersible replica in simulators. I'm going to go ahead and look up. We put that sign there as we're walking along. It gives the same freedom of access if you were there. If I wanted to look up, I'll look up as I hover over these green boxes that are tagged. If I click on that image, I can see that what's behind that green box. In this case, it's a valve. The second thing that we do in enabling you to enhance reality is not only pushing through these images, but also interacting with them. So in this case, I'm turning this valve. If it was a button, you could push the button, a lever to turn it, maybe attach a hose. It really is different from every different application. You can also find these tag images as well, locate them. And there's many other things you can do, including breaking down and dissecting certain types of products or assets and to get a closer view of what's happening, but maybe behind the pipes or how it's made up. I can see the X-ray mode, the flows, the valves here on this example. Watch what happens when I click this and this. This is an interactive way of teaching process technology or something about the piece of equipment. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to close that and move on to the, let's see, let me close this. Let me move this out of the way. I'm now into the simulator. So the replica is the first step in Vivio. It's the foundation. The simulator really is where the value is extracted. This is where we marry the procedure down here to the replica that we just saw. And we create this checklist. The checklist is everything you see in the procedure broken down step by step. And then it's as simple as following the green arrow in the box. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the box, and it's telling me to close the valve, the drain valve. So I'm going to do that. I'm just grab it with my mouse, and then I close it, click, and close. It's as simple as that. I just step myself through the first step in the simulator for this procedure, and it stepped me to the next step in the procedure. This is like having a subject matter expert step you through your work step by step. And this is done remotely. This is an operator maybe sitting at their home or potentially in the classroom. This is the next step in the procedure it walked us to. If I click on this, the first thing that's going to pop up here is what we call our knowledge snippets. This is where we capture that tribal knowledge that's walking out the door. This is very well could be a video or an audio clip. This, in this case, it's content. It's telling you something about the step in the procedure that's important. That's where we capture that knowledge. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure it's open, click on it, close. And again, it's like having an SME step you through walk you down this procedure step by step. Down here, there's a map. You can always orientate yourself where you are in your work plant or your work area. That should take me up the stairs and deposit me right in front of the procedure. Okay, so that's a simulator. The next step the next module I want to show you is actually the test module. The test module is after you assign these practice assignments to the operators, and they train and they practice and they practice. And by the way, there's 3 different practice modules. I only showed you one. After you practice, the idea is, what's the sense in practicing unless you're going to test them on it? And this is what the test looks like. Down here, we have the map, we have a procedure document, here's the test, and then the checklist. So it's all familiar to the student or the operator. Now I just start beginning to walk. I'm going to look up, and this is the first step in the procedure I'm trying to accomplish. When I hover over these green boxes, there's no more help. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I'm going to go ahead and close it. I need to know that that valve is the one I need to turn first. I click on it, I immediately get feedback. Green is good. It's telling me I correctly completed the action. And I'm gonna go ahead and close this and go on to the next step in the procedure. I'm gonna go ahead and open it, click on it. Red is bad. Red tells me I made a mistake. I have an option here. I can go and review it back in the simulator, or I can try it again. I'm gonna go ahead and try it again. I know it's this one. I'm gonna click on it. Green is good. So I got it right the first time, made a mistake, and then I got it right the second time. And so ultimately I could look at a report like this. It's going to show me what I got right, what I got wrong. The key to the testing and the key to everything you just saw is we're a company that helps operators and people trying to learn things to do it as if they were doing it at the plant. We bring the plant to the screen. So it's learn by doing. So the concept is, and it's true, if you read something, you retain about 10%. If you see something on video, maybe 30%. It's not until you get to the 85 to 90% retention rates, that's when, and that's typically associated with on-the-job training, meaning being there. Vivio actually gets you there to the 80 to 90% retention rates. Last thing I want to show you is the analytics side of this. I'm just briefly going to touch on this as I briefly touched on everything else. Some of the information you can derive from Vivio, things like this. What's, from a congruent standpoint, the competency level of this specific ship. There's 100, 13 people made 100 on this test score. The average is 92.93, 87.5 over here. And here we have 3 people that scored 75. You can drill down to these 3 people and see their scores. And there's a little bit more information that you can provide. But keep in mind, all the data that we're collecting in Vivio is actually being stored so we can do these types of analytics. Here's another chart that shows the number of actions down here. And here are the assignees. And we can see really right here on step number 4, 3 people got it incorrect. And step number 7, 3 people also got it incorrect. If you go down here to step number 4 and click on that, it'll take you right back to that simulator. And here, if we take a look at it more in detail, maybe doing some root cause analysis, we can see that these valves look awfully alike. So that's probably the reason why you would like to maybe paint this valve red instead of having it look almost the same. And that's something the beauty of Vivio is enabling you to, with our JPEG, our enhanced reality using JPEG, it enables you to quickly be able to take a picture with your cell phone after painting this red and then updating the system. That's something that other systems can't do. Our technology brings tremendous value add, as you can see, but also from a maintenance standpoint, it's very efficient to manage and something, a lot of the stuff you can do on your own. Okay, that's about all the time I have. And back on to you.
So thank you, Pat. And so the last chart is just kind of an overview of some of our brands that we're currently servicing. And one of our large customers is BASF. It's the large plant in Geismar, and we are moving over to Germany where there's 25,000 employees. And we'll be building procedures for, new operators, for skilled operators, and starting up complex equipment. And some of our customers have nemesis called flares that light off, or other releases that go in the atmosphere that you read about. And unfortunately, in some cases, there are fatalities. So we provide them with that training mechanism that prevent those incidents from occurring. And quite proud of that. I wish I would have had this tool when I was managing an industry, but you can see we do have Alabama represented here. So we're continuing to grow as often as we can get out and market our solution. We have buyers, okay? And I would say it's gonna be a transformation for the digital world. So remember, it's easy to implement, it's easy to execute, And I can tell you that it's going to be most competitive from a pricing standpoint. So that's all we had for this morning based on the time allotment. And once again, we appreciate you all giving us this opportunity. Pat, the last page. This is just our contact information. We'll send these charts to Jill or Jay or Tim or whoever, can distribute them, or if there's an interest, people can follow up. So we thank you once again, Mr. Moore and team.
Well, thank you, Ron and Pat. That was a great presentation. Very interesting. Wish you'd been around a few years ago when I was still in the industry, and that'd be very helpful in training folks.
Same here.
That's super.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you for your presentation this morning. We'll certainly we have the video today will be on our AlabamaWorks website, so people can go back and see and get your information.
Great.
So thanks again for joining us this morning. Next up, we have Miss Lana Israel from Musology. And she's going to talk to us this morning about how Musology software can help us teach math to our students in Alabama. Ms. Israel, you with us?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you
I
all.
apologize. I read Ms., but it's Dr. Israel, right?
I will answer either or both. So great. So I'm just going to share my screen. Wonderful. So I'm delighted to join you all this morning and share with you what we're doing at Musology. Musology is based on a very simple, intuitive premise that you've all experienced before. And that is that information put to music is easier to remember. So music is the way we all learned our ABCs. And if I ask you right now, what comes first, P or Q, you're probably going, LMNOP, to answer that question. So, as adults even, we continue to experience this learning power of music. If you hadn't heard these two words in decades and suddenly you heard Sweet Caroline, you know what comes next. All of you know what comes next. So that's the amazing learning property of music. And yet, amazingly, astonishingly, after early childhood learning, music pretty much disappears from formal education. Bye-bye, Miss American Pie. The music dies after about kindergarten, first grade. And we said, number one, why is that? And what could we do about that? So that is why we actually created Musology. Now, before I get into what we do at Musology, just want to explain why music is such a powerful learning medium. And again, babies and toddlers use music all the time as a learning medium. It's actually saturated for early childhood learners. So music stimulates brain regions that are critical for sustained and successful learning, namely attention, motivation, memory, and emotion. And that doesn't change as we get older, right? That doesn't change when we're teenagers and adults. Music is very, at a neurological level, very powerful learning medium. And as educators, we also know that the greatest challenges we face in the classroom today, there's your short list, right? How do we keep students paying attention, motivated to learn? How do we handle issues of retention, where you teach a student something one week and the next week they've forgotten it? And how do you get students emotionally engaged? So with music, we've got this incredible medium that really fires on all cylinders. So when we realized that music wasn't being used as a credible pedagogical tool outside of early childhood learning, we decided to assemble a team of hit songwriters and music producers, cognitive psychologists, subject matter experts, to create an iterative series of comprehensive instructional music videos that taught math. And when we looked at the K-12 landscape, what jumped off the page as a really acute pain point that was critical to high school graduation rates, college and career readiness, vocational readiness, was pre-algebra and algebra. And so we started with pre-algebra, which is essentially middle school math, because that is where we saw proficiency start to drop significantly for the first time. And that's also where there was this dearth of supplemental tools that educators could use to, one, catch students up, and two, accelerate those students forward. The other thing we were very deliberate about doing was creating content that appealed to an older demographic. So we're based in Nashville, Tennessee. We work with hit songwriters and producers. These don't sound like baby songs, and I'm going to show you a video in a moment. And the other thing we wanted to do was to make sure our videos transcended rote memorization and actually could start to teach underlying math procedures and concepts. So this is not just like we're using music as a tool to help kids memorize, and mathematical fluency is important in many instances, but we also wanted to use music to do a lot of heavy lifting when it came to math instruction. So Musology is an end-to-end supplemental learning system. In addition to our library of instructional math music videos, we have gamified pre- and post-test assessments, which are essentially in-platform formative assessments that students will take again and again and again because they're gamified. And this is a way for educators to gauge a student's learning progress and growth. We also have customizable and assignable playlists that educators can create and assign to entire classes, groups of students, individual students. This helps, one, differentiate instruction, and two, keep students focused on the educator's pacing. And then we have dashboards and analytics. So educators and administrators can track real-time student progress and learning growth. We are particularly excited about the results we saw last school year over the pandemic. As we all know, it was a very challenging school year during which the vast majority of students fell behind. And this was 2 times more pronounced in math than for any other subject. And this was a recent study by McKinsey and Company that showed on average, students fell 10 months behind last year. And for students of color, it was 12 to 16 months behind. So, as educators, as you're all well aware, we're faced with this very, very kind of unwinnable challenge of reteaching almost an entire year, if not more, of curriculum, plus this year's curriculum. And so teachers are finding themselves in these very challenged situations. And while the rest of the country fell behind last year, during the pandemic, educators and students who used Musology consistently actually saw learning growth. So the first example is a teacher, math department head in Little Rock, Arkansas. Her students saw 2 to 3 years on average of learning growth on NWEA map growth assessments last year. And second example is an educator in California who was working at an alternative school. And he shared with me this case study of a student who had basically a history of failing math her entire academic career. And in 3 months of using Musology, she saw a 50-point increase on the California state test, pre and post test that he had administered to this student, and just became a star student in math. So we see these incredible results across the board, and we would like students in Alabama to experience the same types of results through the power of music. I'd like to show you some data that we've collected. So this is based on pre and post test assessments from 300 students in Knoxville, Tennessee. And these were students in a summer school program. And this is a distribution of their pre-test scores. And what is 2 things that are notable here. One is these students were doing very poorly on the pre-test, right? If we look at the mode, the most frequently occurring score, it's a 30%. So these students weren't kind of not getting it, they were really not getting it. The next thing that's worth noting is when we look at this graph, it's pretty much a normal distribution with a little bit of a tail towards the higher performing scores. And we've been taught that every single distributed human trait and characteristic from IQ to height is characterized by a bell-shaped curve. Well, these students then get exposed to Musology. They watch our instructional math music videos, and they post-test. And before I show you the distribution of scores on the post-test, I'd just like you to take a second and just in your mind, guess, what do you think the mode becomes? So the most frequently occurring pre-test score was a 30%. After watching a math music video, what do you think the most frequently occurring post-test score becomes? And here's the answer. It becomes 100%. So the distribution in blue is the distribution of scores after students watch our music videos and post-test. Two things notable here. One, the mode jumps from a 30 to a perfect 100%. And two, if we look at this blue distribution, it's no longer a bell-shaped curve. It's no longer a normal distribution. This flies in the face of everything we've been taught when it comes to learning and memory and how the brain and mind and retention works. And so these are the types of results that we've replicated in every state, district, school, and classroom that have used Musology. When you bring music into the equation, what happens at the level of learning is actually kind of magical. So I'd love to just jump into the platform really quickly, show you a snippet of a Musology music video. And we would, of course, love to continue to engage with you, provide more information, more data. Here's how you can reach me, lana@musology.com. But before we wrap up, I'll just show you a snippet of one of our music videos. Okay, so we're in the Musology platform right now. I'm actually logged in as a teacher, and I'm going to go to the video library, and I'll show you one of our crowd favorites, graphing ordered pairs. So if anyone woke up this morning and you were like, I really feel like singing about graphing ordered pairs, today is your day. Oh, you know what? I think I just need let me do this one more time. I think I need in Zoom, optimize. Oh, it is. Okay, it's optimized for sound and video. Just wanted to check that, and we'll go right back to where we were.
Left and right, X up and down, Y, left and right, X up and down, Y, left and right, X up and down, Y. Reference lines on which you rely. The space where you grab points has a long name. It's called Cartesian coordinate plane. This coordinate plane comes to be when you draw the X and Y axis. Coordinate plane like an old school map. Two coordinates pinpoint exactly where you're at. In ordered pairs, comma Y in parentheses. Moves the point horizontally, then vertically. X coordinate moves across left, right. Y moves up, down, unite. Coordinate supports to show an exact position. You need to know the X, the Y when graphing's the mission. Left and right, X up and down, Y. Left and right, X up and down, Y. Left and right, X up and down, Y. Reference lines on which you rely. X-axis and Y-axis make four quadrants, and in this you plot coordinates to find out where a point is using an ordered pair. Using an ordered pair to graph points, everything is relative to the origin. Think of it like a starting point where you should be. On a 2D graph, 0, 0 are coordinates.
So just a little taste of Musology. It's been a pleasure to be with you all this morning, and look forward to staying in touch and having your students benefit from music-based learning of math.
Well, thank you, Dr. Israel. That was a great presentation. Now I'm going to have that in my head along with Sweet Carolina, the ABC song. So thank you. I'll be following me all day long. So very interesting. I think solutions like that is going to help us close our mathematics achievement gap in Alabama. So a question is, have you gotten any work with the State Department yet?
We have not. We have not, and we would love to. done a lot of work at the state level in Arkansas. We're talking to Department of Education in Florida as well, but we not yet in Alabama, and we're your neighbor, and we'd love to work with you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your interesting presentation. That looks great. We certainly need a lot of help in mathematics. So not just in Alabama, but nationwide. So you've got a very interesting field.
This is a nationwide issue, dare I, say that, lack of math performance and proficiency that gets felt by employers all over the country as well when they have students graduate who, as we saw in the previous presentation, are struggling with kind of basic mathematical skills they need to do their jobs properly. So on the workforce front, this is a huge issue. And we're seeing all over the country that when we teach students in a way that's relevant and resonates with them, they're capable of learning behind what we sometimes think, particularly when it comes to math. And when these students experience success at math, it puts them in this very interesting, positive, self-reinforcing feedback loop when they're normally in like a negative spiral when it comes to math, where they go, you know what? It feels good to achieve. I feel proud of myself that I can do math. I can do this. This isn't impossible. And so we actually also see like the entire dynamic in a classroom and school changes once kids can experience efficacy as learners and success at what is typically their most challenging subject in school. So the byproducts of this are felt at the classroom, school, and even community level and state level, of course.
Well, thank you very much, because I can tell you're passionate about this subject. And what, by the way, what is your PhD in? Is it mathematics or music?
My PhD, it's in experimental psychology, which scares people sometimes, but really my focus was in cognitive psychology and memory. So I spent a lot of years doing theoretical research on memory in the brain. And then after getting my PhD, wound up moving to New York and went into the music industry. And so when I got to Nashville and started Musology, that's when I combined both of those areas.
Very interesting. Well, we don't want to go any further there because Sonia tell you to investigate my mind, and we don't want to go there. That's a very blank slate. So, but thank you again for your presentation. And now
Thank you.
We hope to see you again soon. So, Nick, I think you're up next to give us an update on the monthly workforce report. So take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Talk a little bit about our unemployment rate and labor force participation rate for September. We're at 3.1%, which is unchanged from the previous month. We're still holding at the lowest unemployment rate in the Southeast. Looking at our labor force participation rate, that is at 56.6%. It continues to be also one of the lower ones in the Southeast, though we are above Mississippi, that's at 55.8%, and we are just one notch above Kentucky. So we continue to see an increased focus, and this is something that the governor and the Department of Labor and the Workforce Council and others have been focused on for a long time before COVID. But I think the entire country is beginning to understand the effects of weak labor force attachment, weak labor force participation, and everybody is trying to figure out what's the one single answer for why labor force participation may be lower than it needs to be. And I think what we are helping folks to hopefully understand a little bit more about this very complicated issue is that there are many issues that go into the labor force participation rate, including things like benefits cliffs, to where someone may be at risk of losing benefits when they go into paid employment. So we got to structure the system of support so that they're not losing benefits more quickly than they are gaining income through paid employment. And then for the folks that have just now been affected by COVID-19, there's other complicating factors such as fear about re-entering the workforce after maybe losing someone due to the illness, or there's continuing fears around this federal vaccine mandate that, of course, the governor is fighting against and the legislature acted on. And then there are folks that have more complicated family care situations. Now, we do have 91% of our child care facilities open back up, and we got the nation's best first-class pre-K program, but there's still some areas that don't have as much access to child care. So there's a combination of factors that affect our labor force participation rate, but the most important thing that we have to be doing, and like the governor's been doing, is focus on it and make sure that everybody understands that it's not one agency, it's not one particular area, it's the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector that all have to work together on this labor force participation issue. So you'll see this continue to be a large area of focus for state government. And I know from talking with Chairman McCartney, he can correct me if I'm misspeaking, but this is also an area of focus for business and industry and the Workforce Council. So sometimes it just helps to look at visuals. And if you look at from March 2020 down to September 2021, the unemployment rate in Alabama is really trended downward, and we're down now to back towards full employment, and to where the just about everybody that wants a job in Alabama can get one. And so to put that in perspective, Secretary Washington announced that there are 90,816 online job ads. There's 68,544 unemployed Alabamians. So that means that there's more than one job available for every person that is unemployed. Now, again, this unemployed number, that's just folks that are actively seeking a job. This unemployment rate back here, or the labor force participation rate we're talking about, are folks that are not working and are not actively looking for work. So folks that are not in the labor force at all, or on the sidelines of the labor force. And so taking a look and just seeing the scope and scale of initial unemployment claims, I think helps put the entire pandemic in perspective. And what we're looking at here is the number of initial claims by week. And you'll see that up at this sort of apogee of claims that we were at in around October of 2021. And this is just looking at the last couple of months, we were at 12,000. Now that's back when we were at the Delta variant peak. And so again, this whole graph here, we're just looking from the 18th of September through the 30th of October. But you can see we're back down now to under 3,000 claims a week. So that's just a big drop, a factor of 4 drop just in 2 months. So we can see that this Delta variant is passed through the economy. Now, taking back a look at how this labor force, and I'm going to focus just a little bit more on the labor force issue for a second here. So when Governor Ivey entered office and started making a focus on the labor force participation rate in April 2017, we were at 56.7%. In February 2020, you'll see where I got that second arrow and the grayed out area on this graph. Anytime you see them from the Federal Reserve, that's recessions. We're at 57.7%. So in one way to look at this is that first couple years that the governor was in office, due to focusing on things like benefits cliffs and integrating services and helping it make it easier for people to get connected with employers, we saw a 1% increase in the labor force participation rate. And that was really the biggest increase in the labor force participation rate we had seen, except maybe just the jump that happened right after the last Great Recession. So, you could see that this was due to intentionality. And so 1% increase in labor force participation rates about 40,000 people. So that's adding about 40,000 people to the labor force. Now, another thing to think about is that we've had about 18,000 deaths due to COVID-19 in the state. About 10 or 11,000 of those were, or no, about 7,000 of those were 65 plus, very few below 18. So we got about 10 or 11,000 working age people who have been, who are no longer in the workforce due to death related to COVID. And that's a very somber and sobering statistic to think about, that 0.25% of the growth that we'd had in those was cut due just to that itself. So, and that's also coupled with the fact that we've got folks that have no longer decided to participate. They've retired early due to COVID, or they're still not have re-entered after the pandemic. And so if we were just to get this labor force participation rate back up to the national average, which is not too far away from where the apogee of our participation, use that word again, was in 1997, around 63%, the highest we've ever been, that would be an additional 160,000 people added to the labor force. So that's why labor force participation is so important, because we're talking about 1 percentage point, but that's 40,000 people. So if we just moved it up from where we are now at the 56.6 or 7% to 61.6, then that would be 160,000 people, which is very significant. Now, I've showed a couple times this Opportunity Insights Tracker. This is something that several universities have done in partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor. And so what we're showing here is taking a look at the initial claims per 100 people in Alabama. So right now we are at about 3,327 claims. So that's about 0.15 initial claims per 1,000 people. So if you look at, again, this is just putting this into perspective. If you look at where that graph is back a year ago, then much more significant. One more chart here I'll show you is that all job postings have increased by 52% in the state over the year. And so this goes in line with the statistics I shared earlier about more jobs being available for every one person that's unemployed. So if you know anybody that is looking for a job, there are more jobs posted than there are people looking. So right now they get their pick. Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you.
Well, thank you, Nick, for the update. Very, very interesting and important information to have. And while our unemployment rate continues to decline, go in the right directions, we've got to do more to increase our labor force participation rate, as you said. We need fewer people on the sidelines and more involved in the game itself. So our work at the Workforce Council to mitigate the benefit cliffs and to provide career-specific training will help in that regard. But we must all do more, and that begins with focusing on the labor force participation rate. So thanks again for your report, Nick. Looks like we're out of time again for today. Really appreciate everybody joining us. Appreciate all the speakers. Very good information today. Thank y'all so much for joining us today. And please tune in on December 20th at 9 a.m. for our next AlabamaWorks webinar. And remember, if you can't join us on the live show, a recording can be found on AlabamaWorks.com website. So in the meantime, have a good week, and I hope you all have